Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into the world of visual effects with Identical Brains Studios Limited.
Identical Brains Studios Limited.
And you've given us quite the document to go through.
It's a big one.
Yeah, their draft red herring prospectus for an IPO on the NSE emerge.
Hmm.
It's packed with, well, a lot of financial jargon,
Yeah.
industry insights.
It's
So we're going to try to break it down,
yeah.
extract all the good stuff, the important stuff.
All the juicy bits.
So you can really understand
What Identical Brains.
what Identical Brains is all about, what
Yeah.
they're hoping to achieve.
What they're going for.
Now, what I found fascinating about this document is that it's a lot more than just numbers.
It is, yeah.
It really lays out their ambitions, the challenges they're facing, and sort of gives us a glimpse into the future, not only that they see for themselves, but for the entire VFX landscape.
That's right, yeah. It's really fascinating.
Now, get this, they've worked on some projects you've probably seen,
Oh, yeah.
like Tanov 2,
Criminal Justice 4.
oh, Mission Ranaganj, Dream Girl 2,
Big names.
and even Adapurush.
Wow.
I mean, they've got their fingers in a lot of pies.
Yeah, they're busy. You know what I found interesting, though?
What's that?
While they have worked with all the major Bollywood studios,
Right.
about a third of their revenue last year
Hmm.
came from outside those big names,
Okay.
which is really interesting. It tells me they're not content just riding the Bollywood wave.
So they're branching out.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that ties into their global ambitions
Mm.
that they mentioned in the document. It seems like they're really trying to position themselves to play on a much larger field
Right.
than just, India.
Absolutely. And this IPO
Hmm.
isn't just a typical we need cash kind of situation.
Oh, okay.
They're aiming to raise
Okay.
a pretty substantial sum, Locks.
Wow.
And that puts their valuation at a really ambitious term times their face value,
That's huge.
which signals a lot of confidence in their future growth.
Right.
And that's something potential investors will definitely be looking at.
Right. Okay, so they're ambitious, but what exactly are they planning to do with all that money?
Yeah, good question.
The document does mention some specifics, right?
It does. It does.
What are some of the things that jumped out at you?
Well, they're looking at renovating their studio in Antiri.
Okay.
Makes sense if they're planning to expand their operations. But what really caught my eye was the plan for a new branch office in
Lucknow?
Lucknow. Yeah.
That's
Which is interesting, right?
Lucknow.
Well, it's a couple things. First, the talent pool in Lucknow is potentially
Okay.
less competitive
Oh, I see.
than Mumbai. So they might have an easier time finding skilled artists.
Interesting. Yeah.
And second, the cost of operating
Mm-hmm.
could be significantly lower in Lucknow
Makes sense.
than in Mumbai.
Yeah.
So it could give them a real edge in terms of pricing their services.
So it's a strategic move
It is.
to access talent,
Talent.
but also potentially save money in the long run.
Right. Absolutely. It's smart.
Yeah. It's really interesting that they're choosing Lucknow specifically.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if they're trying to tap into maybe a different
A different vibe.
creative energy or something.
Exactly. And it's not just expansion.
Oh.
They're also investing in a dedicated color grading, digital intermediate, and sound studio.
Wow. They're going all in.
It seems like they're aiming to become like a one-stop shop
Okay.
for post-production.
Wow.
It's a bold move.
Yeah. That's a pretty big statement, I think,
It is.
about
Oh,
where
yeah.
they see themselves fitting into the industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the document doesn't just paint this rosy picture.
Okay.
It does highlight some challenges, some risks.
Uh-oh.
One that stood out to me was their current reliance on those big Bollywood studios for revenue.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense.
So what happens if those studios decide to cut back on spending or shift to different providers?
Yeah, that's a big what if.
It is a big what if. And it's not just the studios.
Hmm.
The document also mentions the potential talent shortage and rising wages in India. So if everyone's trying to get a piece of this VFX pie,
Yeah.
finding and keeping skilled artists could be a real struggle.
Right.
And then there's also the fact that it's a global market now.
Right.
The document even mentions the risk of brain drain.
Oh, yeah.
Top talent being lured away by international studios with even bigger budgets and projects.
Oh, wow.
So they're not just competing within India.
Right.
They're facing competition on a global scale.
That's a whole different ballgame.
It is.
Yeah.
So even with all this potential, all these ambitions they have,
Right.
there are some serious headwinds they'll have to navigate.
So it's a bit of a mixed bag.
It is. But what does the document say about the overall industry landscape and their future outlook.
Yeah, what's the big picture?
Well, it paints a pretty optimistic picture for the animation and VFX industry as a whole.
Okay.
And they cite some interesting data.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Yeah, like the projected growth of the Indian media and entertainment sector,
Okay.
and how all these streaming giants are fueling the demand for high-quality visual effects.
That's true. Everyone loves those, you know?
Everyone loves them.
Amazing special effects in their favorite shows.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the future,
Yeah.
they mentioned some pretty exciting plans to venture into immersive technologies.
Ooh.
Like augmented reality and virtual reality.
AR, VR.
So it seems like they're really looking at the future
The future of entertainment.
of how we experience entertainment.
That's right.
So they're not just focused on, the present. They're
Yeah.
really thinking long term.
They want to be at the forefront of whatever's next.
So they're ambitious, they're facing some challenges, but they're definitely looking toward the future.
That's right.
There's a lot to unpack here, but I think we've covered a good overview
Yeah, I think so.
of identical brains and what they're all about.
Yeah. We've laid the groundwork.
Yeah, we've set the stage.
Now let's dive into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
Their financials.
Okay, the numbers.
And numbers. That's where we'll really get a sense of their performance and potential.
All right, so stay tuned because we'll be back with part 2 of our deep dive into Identical Brains Studios Limited.
Back after the break. Welcome back to our deep dive into Identical Brains Studios Limited.
All right, so we've established that Identical Brains is aiming high.
They are
But now let's get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
Talk about their financials.
the numbers.
Now, I know numbers can be a bit dry,
Yeah.
but the document actually lays things out pretty clearly.
It does, yeah.
So that's helpful.
Yeah. They highlight this key metric called EBITDA.
EBITDA.
EBITDA, yeah.
Yeah.
Which basically shows how profitable they are from their core operations,
Okay.
stripping away things like taxes and interest.
So it's kind of like a
It's a pure...
profit number.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And their EBITDA margin for the recent fiscal year sits at a pretty impressive 18.07%.
18.07. Okay, help me out here. What does that actually tell us about their performance?
Well, it means that for every rupee they bring in,
Okay.
they're keeping almost 20 pays as pure profit.
So
It's
that's
pretty efficient.
Making good money.
Yeah, and when you compare that to some of their listed competitors like Prime Focus Limited or Digicore Studios,
Okay.
it shows they're punching well above their weight.
So they're not just surviving.
Oh,
They're thriving.
they're doing well.
And the document mentions another impressive figure, their return on equity.
Oh, yeah.
50.14%.
That's huge.
That's got to be music to the ears of potential investors.
It is. Basically, it means they're really good at using shareholder investments
Right.
to generate even bigger profits.
So they're making money for the people who are investing in them.
Exactly. That's the kind of efficiency that gets investors excited.
But hold on.
You know.
Before we get too carried away with all these impressive figures,
Right.
we got to remember those risks we talked about earlier. Heavy reliance on Bollywood studios.
Yeah.
Potential talent shortages. I mean, those factors could definitely impact their future performance.
Absolutely. And the document acknowledges that, past performance isn't a guarantee of future success.
Right, right.
It's crucial for potential investors to consider both sides of the coin,
Yeah.
the potential rewards and the potential downsides.
All right. So assuming they manage to navigate these challenges,
Yeah.
what are they actually planning to do with all this money they're hoping to raise through this IPO?
Good question.
I mean, we touched on their expansion plans, but the document kind of goes into a little more detail.
It does, yeah.
What are some of the specifics?
Well, a big chunk of it will go towards expanding their existing studio in Antiri,
Okay.
upgrading facilities, new equipment.
That makes sense.
Makes sense that they're planning to take on bigger and more complex projects.
Right.
And then what about that new branch office in Lucknow?
Yeah, Lucknow. What's the thinking behind that move?
They're betting on a few things. First,
Yeah.
the talent pool in Lucknow,
Right.
potentially less tapped than in Mumbai.
Okay.
So they might have an easier time finding skilled artists.
Makes sense.
And second, operating costs could be significantly lower in Lucknow,
Okay.
which could give them a competitive edge in terms of pricing.
So it's a strategic move to access both talent
Talent.
and cost saving.
Cost savings, exactly.
But setting up a whole new office, that's
Yeah.
a big undertaking.
It is.
Are they really ready to handle that kind of expansion?
It seems like they're moving quickly.
Okay.
They've already secured a temporary office space in Lucknow.
Wow.
while they work on getting their permanent studio up and running.
So they're not just talking about it.
They're doing it,
They're actually doing it.
putting things in motion.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And remember that dedicated color grading,
Huh.
digital intermediate, and sound studio?
Oh, yeah, the whole package.
Yeah, the document goes into how that fits into their overall strategy.
What'd they say?
Well, it seems like they're aiming to become a one-stop shop for filmmakers, handling everything from visual effects to the final touches on sound and color.
So they can just go to Identical Brains and
Boom,
their
everything's
done.
done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could give them a real edge,
Right.
especially if they can offer competitive pricing
Mm.
and high-quality work all under one roof.
That's a bold move.
It is a bold move.
Uh,
But becoming a jack of all trades can sometimes mean being a master of none.
That's true.
Do they really have the expertise to excel in all these different areas?
That's a good question. What does the document say?
Well, it doesn't go into detail about their specific expertise in color grading and sound,
Okay.
but it does mention their plans to invest in top-of-the-line equipment and software.
Oh, so they're putting their money where their mouth is.
They are. They're clearly putting resources behind this expansion, so it seems like they're serious about making it work.
All right, so we've got expansion, new studios, fancy equipment.
Yeah,
It all sounds very exciting.
it's a lot.
But let's not forget about the less glamorous side of things.
Oh.
Working capital.
Okay.
What exactly is working capital?
Yeah, it's a good question.
And why is it so important for a company like Identical Brains?
Working capital is the lifeblood of any business.
Okay.
It's the cash they need to keep the lights on,
Okay.
pay their employees,
Right.
even if a client delays payment on a project.
Oh, that makes sense.
And in the VFX industry,
Yeah.
projects can take months to complete.
Right.
So having enough working capital is absolutely crucial.
So it's like a
Safety net.
safety net. Okay.
Yes, Lee.
Making sure they can operate smoothly, even if things get a bit bumpy.
Right.
So how does their current working capital situation look?
The document provides a fascinating breakdown of their working capital cycle.
Oh, okay.
It highlights how the length of their projects and payment terms from clients can really impact their cash flow.
Okay.
It's a delicate balancing act.
Right.
They need to make sure they have enough cash on hand to cover expenses
Right.
without tying up too much capital that could be used for growth.
So it's not just about making money.
No.
It's about managing that money effectively
It is.
to ensure long-term stability.
Exactly.
It sounds like Identical Brains has put a lot of thought into this aspect of their business,
They have.
which is reassuring.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
And a significant portion of the IPO funds is actually allocated to bolstering their working capital.
Okay.
That shows they understand the importance of having a strong financial foundation.
Right.
And that's a good sign for potential investors.
Okay, so we've gone from big picture ambitions to the nitty-gritty details of their financials.
We have.
And it's clear that Identical Brains has, like, a solid financial plan in place.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to put their money where their mouth is.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
But remember, every investment comes with risks.
Right.
The document itself outlines a number of potential challenges they could face.
Right.
Competition, talent shortages, cybersecurity threats.
Right. All those things we talked about.
Exactly. Potential investors need to weigh those risks carefully.
It's about looking at both sides of the coin, right?
Absolutely.
But even with those risks,
Yeah.
there's a sense of excitement about Identical Brains and their vision for the future.
There is, yeah.
It's like they're not just a VFX company.
Yeah.
It's like they're a company that's passionate about pushing the boundaries of storytelling and visual artistry.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That's what really sets them apart, I think.
Yeah.
They're not just chasing profits.
Right.
They're chasing a vision.
Mm.
And that kind of passion can be contagious, especially for investors who are looking for something more than just a financial return.
So they've got the financials, they've got the vision, and they've got the drive.
They do.
But how does all of this fit into the bigger picture of the entertainment industry? Where does Identical Brains see themselves fitting in?
Yeah.
And what does their journey tell us about where the industry is headed?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Stay tuned as we zoom out and look at the broader landscape of the entertainment industry
Okay.
and how Identical Brains hopes to shape its future. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Identical Brains Studios Limited.
The final part.
We've gone through their background, their financials, their ambitious plans.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
But now I kind of want to step back.
Hmm.
Look at the bigger picture
The big picture.
of the entertainment industry,
Okay.
especially here in India.
Yeah.
Identical Brain's journey to an IPO.
Right.
It's not happening in a vacuum.
No.
It's a really interesting example of how the entertainment landscape is evolving.
Definitely.
And the document itself highlights some key trends that are driving this shift.
Okay.
And the most obvious one, I think, is the rise of streaming services.
Streaming.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I mean, it feels like everyone's glued to their screens these days, binging the latest shows.
All the shows.
Yeah.
So many shows. And those shows, I mean, they need top-notch visual effects to keep us hooked.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And that's exactly the space that Identical Brains is targeting.
Okay.
They're not just limiting themselves to traditional film projects. They're looking at expanding into streaming content, web series, maybe even gaming.
Oh, wow.
So it's smart,
It is.
right?
Yeah.
Diversifying their portfolio,
Right.
tapping into a market that's only going to keep growing.
Absolutely.
And remember those plans to venture into AR and VR.
Oh, yeah. That's exciting.
That's another sign that they're not just following trends. They're trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Be the trendsetters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're betting on the future of entertainment.
Right.
And that's a gamble that could pay off big time.
It could, but the document also acknowledges the challenges
Right.
that come with this rapidly changing landscape.
What kind of challenges?
Well, competition is fierce, not just from established players,
Right.
but also from new studios popping up all over the world.
Oh, wow.
So it's a global race now.
Okay.
Indian VFX companies can't just rest on their laurels.
Right.
They need to constantly innovate, deliver top quality work at competitive prices.
Okay. And speaking of competition,
Yeah.
what about the talent crunch that we talked about earlier?
Right.
How are they planning to attract and retain skilled artists in such a tight market?
Well, they're taking a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Expanding to Lucknow is part of that strategy.
Okay.
By tapping into a less saturated talent pool,
Right.
they're hoping to find skilled artists who might be overlooked in the bigger hubs.
So it's like they're creating opportunities while also solving their own talent needs.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But finding talent is only half the battle.
right.
They need to keep those artists engaged and growing.
Yeah.
Does the document mention anything about their approach to, like, training and development?
It does, yeah.
What do they say?
They emphasize their commitment to ongoing training and development programs.
Okay.
The VFX industry relies on cutting-edge technology,
Right.
which changes at lightning speed.
Yeah, that's true.
Investing in their workforce ensures they can stay ahead of the curve
Right.
and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
So they're not just hiring talent.
No,
They're nurturing it.
they're investing in it.
Yeah. That's a smart move for any company, especially in a field as dynamic as visual effects.
Absolutely.
But there's another trend the document highlights that I found fascinating.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
The rise of regional content.
Regional content.
Yeah.
It's growing.
It's not just about Bollywood anymore.
No.
Regional language films are becoming more ambitious in terms of their storytelling and their visuals.
Right.
They're realizing the power of VFX to enhance their narratives and captivate audiences.
Yeah.
And this opens up a whole new market for VFX companies like Identical Brains.
Right.
They can work on a wider range of projects, from big budget blockbusters to regional films with unique visual styles.
It's about diversification
Yeah.
and adapting to the evolving tastes of audiences.
Right.
Identical Brains is recognizing that opportunity,
Oh.
positioning themselves to cater to a much broader spectrum of filmmaking.
It's a smart strategy.
It is.
But we can't forget about the financial realities of the VFX industry.
Yeah.
The document does kind of shed some light on how projects are priced
Oh, okay.
and how companies manage their cash flow.
Right.
It's not as straightforward as one might think.
It's not. It's a complex process.
It makes it so complex.
Well, you've got bidding wars,
Oh, wow.
negotiations,
Right.
sometimes even deferred payments.
Oh, so you don't always get paid right away.
Not always.
Wow.
So it's a delicate balancing act
Okay.
to ensure profitability
Right.
while staying competitive.
And remember the importance of working capital.
Oh, well.
That becomes even more critical when payment schedules can be so unpredictable.
It does. It's like they're juggling multiple projects, deadlines,
Right.
budgets all at the same time.
It sounds stressful.
It can be. They need to have a really solid system in place
Yeah.
to manage all of that.
Right.
It sounds like Identical Brains is approaching this with a healthy mix of ambition and caution.
So they're not just, like, jumping in head first.
No, they're being strategic.
They're being smart about it.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored Identical Brain's story, their financials, their plans, the wider industry trends shaping their journey.
It's been a journey.
It has.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean?
That's the big question.
What's the takeaway for our listener?
I think Identical Brain's IPO isn't just a financial event.
Okay.
It's a sign of the incredible growth and potential of the Indian VFX industry.
Okay.
It shows how Indian companies are becoming global players, pushing the boundaries of storytelling.
Right.
And contributing to the evolution of entertainment as we know it.
And it's not just about big budget spectacles.
Right.
It's about empowering filmmakers, regardless of language or genre, to bring their visions to life.
Yeah.
VFX is becoming more accessible, more versatile, and more integral to the art of filmmaking.
Absolutely.
Identical Brains is riding that wave.
Here they are.
Ready to make their mark on the world.
It's exciting.
It is.
So after this deep dive, we hope you have a better understanding of Identical Brains and what their journey represents.
Yeah.
What's your take? Is Identical Brains a company to watch?
Yeah.
Will they become a major player on the global stage?
Right.
And what does their story tell us about the future of visual storytelling?
Big questions.
Those are the questions we leave you to ponder.
We've just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
But hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Some things to think about.
Yeah. And hey, the next time you're watching a movie or show with dazzling special effects, you might just think of Identical Brains and their journey.
That's a good point.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Deep Dive.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of visual effects, finance, and the future of entertainment.